There were moments in life when two people who should never have crossed paths were pushed together by something so small, so insignificant, that fate must have been laughing. For Liam Brooks, that moment was an error message blinking in red on a billionaire CEO's computer screen. He had fixed hundreds, maybe thousands of machines in his quiet, invisible years as the company's IT technician, but never one that belonged to Ava Carter. She was the kind of woman who didn't just walk into a room, she rearranged the air inside it. A flawless monument of discipline, power, and elegance. A woman sculpted by expectations. A woman the world stared at but never truly saw. And yet, when he accidentally glimpsed a private photo on her glitching monitor, something cracked, fragile as glass, sharp enough to change both of them. She asked him a simple question, so soft it barely matched the legend she was. "Do you think I'm pretty?" The kind of question no so should ever need to ask. The kind of question that revealed more about her loneliness than any headline ever had. Neither of them understood it then, but that moment would become the first thread in a quiet unraveling, of masks, of pride, of the quiet ache of being unseen. Liam Brooks had spent years getting used to being invisible, but on the crisp Tuesday morning when everything began, even he could feel something strange hanging in the air. A quiet pressure humming beneath the fluorescent lights of Carter Global's 32nd floor. He walked into the building with the same worn backpack slung over his shoulder, the same coffee stain on the right sleeve of his hoodie, the same tired eyes from another night of trying to get his daughter to bed early and failing again. Nobody noticed him. Not the interns scrambling down the hall, not the executives gesturing dramatically into their phones, not even the receptionist who saw him every day but still called him IT. Liam didn't take it personally anymore. It was simply the way this world worked. Some people stood in the spotlight until it burned them, and others, like him, worked in the shadows so quietly that no one remembered their face. Yet, as he scanned his ID card and entered the elevator, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen, something that would shift the ground beneath his feet in a way he wasn't prepared for. Maybe it was the message that had pinged on his device at 7:12 a.m., stamped with the high-priority tag that only one person in the entire corporation had the authority to assign. Maybe it was the short, clipped sentence attached to it: "System malfunction, CEO office, immediate." No name, no explanation, no courtesy, just a command, one issued by Ava Carter, the woman who could make entire departments tremble simply by passing their doorway. Even reading the line had made Liam blink twice and recheck it, because she never contacted IT directly. She had assistants. And those assistants had assistants. Her world orbited far from his, separated by glass walls, private elevators, and the kind of wealth that could repave a city block before lunch. Yet today, somehow, she had reached all the way down the corporate ladder toward him. And that was enough to set something uneasy turning in his stomach as the elevator rose. The doors slid open to the executive floor, a quiet, echoing space where conversations were never loud and footsteps never rushed. Everything here seemed engineered to project calm superiority, pale marble floors polished to reflect the ceiling lights, artwork so minimalist it was almost intimidating, and a silence that pressed in on you like the air itself demanded discipline. Liam stepped out carefully, feeling for the 100th time like an intruder trespassing into a world that would never belong to him. He headed toward the CEO's office, acutely aware that his hoodie, scuffed sneakers, and cheap messenger bag looked wildly out of place amid the tailored suits and gleaming shoes around him. Her assistant, a sharp-eyed woman who always spoke as if she were timing herself, stood waiting near the entrance. "You're Liam, right?" she asked, though she already knew. No one came up here without reason. "Yes, ma'am," he answered automatically. She barely nodded before motioning him toward the towering frosted glass doors. "She's inside. She's expecting you. Don't make her wait." As if he would ever dare. Liam stepped into Ava Carter's office, and the first thing he noticed was how large it felt, not because of actual size, though it was enormous, but because of the emptiness. Wide windows stretched across the entire wall, revealing the skyline like a silent audience. The furniture was sleek, sharp-edged, arranged with intentional precision. It wasn't a room designed for comfort. It was designed for power. And standing near the window, her arms crossed, was Ava Carter herself. Even from across the room, she radiated the kind of presence that demanded you straighten your posture without meaning to. She wore a black suit tailored so perfectly it seemed sculpted onto her frame, her dark hair pulled into a severe twist, makeup flawless in a way that made her look carved from discipline. She didn't smile, she didn't soften, she didn't pretend to be approachable. She simply existed with the controlled stillness of someone who had long accepted that she must be steel to survive. "You're here," she said, turning just enough to acknowledge him. Not a greeting, more like a statement of inventory. Liam swallowed, adjusting the strap of his bag. "Yes, Ms. Carter, I received your alert." She gestured toward her sleek all-glass desk. "The system froze, then it rebooted itself, and now I can't access several directories. This started 30 minutes ago, and I have a board meeting in 90. Her voice was calm, crisp, but beneath the surface he caught a glimmer, just a flicker of tension. Not fear, pressure. The kind only someone in her position could understand. "I'll take care of it," Liam said gently. She stepped aside, granting him access to her computer, and he moved toward the desk with the careful, deliberate steps of someone entering sacred ground. He set his bag down quietly, powered the machine into diagnostic mode, and tried to focus solely on the familiar rhythm of troubleshooting. It was easier to breathe when he was looking at code instead of the intimidating woman standing less than 3 feet behind him. But as the system ran through its automated checks, something odd appeared, a temporary file directory that shouldn't have been visible, much less active. Liam frowned, clicked it, and before he could process what he was seeing, the image popped onto the screen, a photograph. Ava Carter, without makeup, hair loose over her shoulders, sitting on the floor in casual clothes, smiling in a way that seemed almost soft. Startlingly human, vulnerable. Not the CEO, not the myth, just a woman. And at that exact moment, fate, or irony, chose to deliver the worst timing imaginable, because the office door whispered open, and Ava stepped back inside just as the image shone across the giant monitor, impossible to ignore. Liam froze. The world froze. Ava's steps halted mid-stride. For a second she didn't speak, didn't breathe, didn't blink. Her expression didn't contort with anger or horror. It simply went blank in a way that felt far more dangerous. His hand jerked toward the keyboard. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to—" "Don't," she said quietly. Not loud, not sharp, just a soft, controlled warning. She stepped closer, and the silence between them thickened until Liam could feel it hanging against his skin. She was not looking at her photo, she was looking at him. And there was something in her eyes that he had never seen before, something raw, fragile, edged with a fear so deep it didn't know how to express itself as emotion. "Tell me," she said at last, her voice barely above a whisper, yet slicing through the air with precision. "Do you think I'm pretty?" The question shouldn't have belonged in a room like this, in a world like hers. It felt too exposed, too intimate, too honest for someone whose entire life was wrapped in armor. Liam's breath caught, and in that suspended second, everything shifted. The invisible IT guy, the untouchable CEO, the enormous office, the skyline beyond the glass. It all rearranged itself into a moment neither of them had ever expected, one that would pull them both into a quiet, irreversible collision with the parts of themselves they had long learned to hide. Tyler didn't remember how long he stood frozen in that narrow alley after the mysterious figure disappeared into the shadows. But the silence that followed felt like a void swallowing everything he thought he understood about the world. The darkness around him wasn't just absence. It felt alive, pressing against him, urging him to move even as his mind spun chaotically. His breath came in sharp, uneven bursts, the cold night air scraping at his throat as the neon-lit city hummed indifferently in the background. Life went on for everyone else, but for him, something fundamental had shifted. Something had opened, uninvited, unexplained, yet impossible to ignore. He pushed himself to walk, though each step felt disconnected, like he was wearing a version of himself that no longer fit. The strange sensation crawling under his skin persisted, a faint but unmistakable current threading through his muscles. It wasn't quite pain, but it wasn't normal either. He rubbed his arms, as if that could mute the static pulsing inside him. When he finally emerged onto the main street, Drowning in the glow of towering screens and buzzing traffic, the sensation intensified, sharper, clearer, almost directional, as though something was tugging at him from an unseen point in the distance. His heart pounded faster. He didn't know what it meant, but the pull left an imprint on his nerves, impossible to shake. Before he could take another step, his phone vibrated violently in his pocket. Unknown number. Hesitation tightened his chest like a fist, but he answered. A steady voice cut through the line. "Do not move." Tyler felt every muscle in his body tense instantly. "Who is this?" he demanded, scanning the street. "Someone trying to keep you alive," the voice replied, clipped and direct. "They're tracking you, not us. Them." A harsh chill crawled down his spine. Them who... But he didn't get to finish. A black SUV screeched onto the street, doors slamming open as armed men in tactical gear spilled out with disturbing precision. Tyler didn't need instructions. He ran, instincts flooding him in ways he couldn't comprehend. The world blurred into streaks of color, honking cars, startled pedestrians, shouts echoing behind him. The men pursued in absolute silence, their movements too synchronized, too efficient to be anything ordinary. "Left, now!" the voice barked from his phone. Tyler obeyed, darting into a narrow alley. A dumpster blocked his way, but adrenaline, or something else, propelled him forward. He vaulted over it effortlessly, landing with a force that surprised him. This wasn't normal. He wasn't this fast. He wasn't this strong. He didn't have time to think about it. Footsteps thundered behind him, steadier, heavier, closing the distance. "Up the fire escape!" the voice ordered. Tyler sprinted toward the ladder, gripping the cold metal and hauling himself upward. Halfway up, a hand clamped around his ankle. Panic surged violently. He kicked back, once, twice, then a third time with a strength that didn't feel human. The grip loosened instantly, the man crashing to the ground below with a thud that echoed painfully loud. Tyler climbed faster, reaching the rooftop just as another set of hands lunged upward. He stumbled across the rooftop toward a red ventilation unit just as the voice instructed. Beside it was a narrow metal door. He shoved it open, but before he could react, a hand shot from the darkness inside and yanked him in. The door slammed shut, locked. Tyler spun, heart in his throat, raising his fists. His attacker, or rescuer, lifted their hands calmly. "Relax," they said. "If I wanted to hurt you, it would have happened already." Tyler squinted through the dim light, hooded, face mostly hidden, but the voice was steady, controlled, not hostile. "Who are you?" he demanded. The hooded figure motioned for him to follow. "Someone trying to make sure you don't get captured tonight." They moved down a narrow stairwell, descending flight after flight until reaching a long, abandoned maintenance corridor lit by flickering bulbs. At the end of the hallway was a heavily reinforced metal door. The figure unlocked several deadbolts with practiced precision and pushed it open to reveal an unexpected sight. A modern, well-equipped hideout filled with monitors, maps, encrypted radios, and scattered documents. The hood finally came down, revealing a woman in her late 20s with sharp cheekbones, auburn hair pulled back loosely, and exhausted eyes that carried far too much knowledge. "My name is Mara," she said, "and you've walked into something far bigger than you're ready for." Tyler swallowed hard. "Someone else said that to me last night," he muttered. "Tall guy, masked, didn't give a name." Mara nodded, unimpressed. "Then you met him. Typical. Dramatic entrances, no explanations." She leaned against a table littered with maps marked with symbols and coordinates. "Tell me everything." Tyler recounted everything. The alley, the warning, the strange electricity under his skin, the way he moved faster than he should have. Mara didn't interrupt, and she didn't look surprised. Not once. When he finished, she exhaled slowly. "It's happening faster than we predicted." "What is?" he demanded. Mara tapped the center of one map. A circular symbol, interlocking lines like constellations, was drawn there. The moment Tyler looked at it, something inside him jolted. Recognition, deep and ancient and terrifying. "Why do I know that?" he whispered. "Because it's part of you," Mara replied softly. "It's encoded in you, in your blood, your nerves, your identity." Tyler shook his head. "That doesn't make sense. I'm just..." "Normal?" Mara cut in. "Do normal people outrun specialized units, sense directions without being told, knock out trained operatives without breaking a sweat?" Tyler's throat tightened. His pulse thudded painfully in his ears. What's happening to me? Mara hesitated, and that hesitation terrified him far more than her words. You're waking up, she said finally. Everything they buried inside you, everything they hid, it's starting to surface. Who's they? He asked, voice cracking. Mara stepped closer, lowering her voice. The organization that created you. The same one hunting you now. And trust me, they do not like losing their property. Tyler staggered back. Property? You're the last one they don't control, Mara said. The only anomaly they couldn't predict. The electricity inside him surged again, hotter, sharper, like something alive was clawing its way upward. His knees weakened, and he grabbed the edge of the table to steady himself. Mara didn't move to help. She simply watched, jaw tight, expression torn between sympathy and urgency. You need to choose, she said. Right now. Choose what? Run from what you are, or learn it, understand it, fight back. Tyler squeezed his eyes shut, trying to breathe through the overwhelming sensation storming through him. When he opened them, Mara was still standing there, unwavering, waiting. The weight of her words settled on him like a destiny he never asked for. But something in his chest, a spark, a pulse, a truth long buried, answered her before he could speak. Tyler stood in the dim glow of the hideout, his breath shallow as the weight of Mara's words clawed at him from every direction, making the air feel thick enough to choke on, as if the room itself was closing in while something inside him continued to awaken with every beat of his hammering pulse. Each throb a new reminder that the life he thought was his had already begun slipping away long before he even knew to grasp it. Mara watched him, not like a friend or an enemy, but like someone who had seen this transformation before. Someone who understood exactly what was stirring in his veins and was waiting for him to be strong enough to face it. The electricity under his skin intensified again, no longer a faint hum but a living current threading through his muscles, coiling around his spine, and Tyler pressed a palm against the cold metal table, gritting his teeth as the energy built like a storm desperate to break free. This isn't real, he muttered, though even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. Reality didn't care about his denial, and the part of him that recognized that strange symbol on the map, the part that moved faster and hit harder than any human should, had already accepted the truth. It's real, Mara said quietly, stepping closer, her voice steady and calm in contrast to the chaos ripping through him. But real doesn't mean hopeless. You weren't supposed to wake this early, which means the ones hunting you are improvising. And that? She pointed a finger at his chest. That gives you an advantage. He let out a bitter laugh that shook slightly. Some advantage, he rasped, pressing a hand to his temple as another surge raced down his arm, like lightning seeking a place to escape. I don't understand any of this. Mara held his gaze. You don't have to understand right now. You just have to survive tonight. Then we can talk about the rest. Before he could respond, alarms blared across the hideout, shrill, urgent, pulsing like a countdown to something catastrophic. Mara spun toward the monitors, her expression turning sharp as she scanned the feeds. Tyler staggered beside her, his heart beating out of sync with the world. On the screens, dark figures were cutting through the lower level of the building with terrifying precision. They found us, Mara hissed, faster than expected. She grabbed a backpack, tossed a device to Tyler, a sleek, palm-sized object that vibrated faintly. Keep that on you at all costs. If they catch you, that thing is the only chance you have to break their hold. Tyler clutched it, confused. Break their hold? Later, she snapped, pulling him toward the back exit. Move! They barreled through a narrow maintenance tunnel, the concrete walls trembling as explosions rocked the building behind them. Dust fell like ash, coating their hair and clothes as they ran. Tyler's senses sharpened unnaturally. He heard footsteps from 2 floors above them, felt vibrations through the ground, smelled the metallic sting of burning wires and synthetic explosives. His breath hitched. What's happening to me? Mara didn't slow. Your instincts are waking. Don't question it. Use it. They burst into a wide underground storage room, crates stacked to the ceiling, shadows dancing wildly from the flickering lights. Mara skidded to a halt and shoved Tyler behind a stack of metal containers. Stay down! Tyler opened his mouth to protest, but then he felt it, an expanding pressure in the air, thick, cold, suffocating, as a figure stepped through the far doorway. Not one of the soldiers. Something else. Taller. Faster. Wrong. Its presence felt like gravity shifting sideways, like a void wrapped in human skin. Tyler's muscles locked as every instinct screamed danger. Mara's hand moved quietly to her holster, her breath held tightly in her throat. The figure's face was obscured by a mask. Sleek, obsidian, seamless, except for a thin line of glowing blue that curved where the eyes should have been. When it spoke, the voice was smooth and detached, as if filtered through a machine. Subject 11. Return to us. Tyler felt the words like claws digging into the back of his mind, pulling at thoughts, twisting something that wasn't supposed to be touched. His vision blurred at the edges. Pain, sharp and predatory, stabbed behind his eyes. "Tyler!" Mara grabbed his shoulder, grounding him. "Fight it! Don't listen!" But the voice came again, colder. "It is inefficient for you to flee. Your design requires compliance. Return." The pain doubled. Tyler fell to his knees, clutching his head, the energy inside him crackling violently as if trying to shield him, but failing under the pressure. The masked figure stepped closer, the air distorting around it. Mara fired, 3 clean shots straight to its chest. The bullets hit, but didn't matter. They dissolved before impact, disintegrating into particles of light. The figure tilted its head as if mildly inconvenienced, then it raised a hand. Mara was thrown across the room, crashing into a metal shelf with a sickening thud. "Mara!" Tyler gasped, adrenaline spiking as he tried to stand, but the force in his mind held him pinned to the ground. "Return, Subject 11. The words tightened around his skull like bands of steel. His pulse thrashed, his breath caught. The buried part of him, the part he didn't understand, began to unravel under the voice's command. He felt consciousness slipping. Felt the world caving inward. Felt something ancient and programmed trying to overwrite him. Until his hand brushed the device Mara gave him. The instant his fingers curled around it, a surge of static exploded through his arm. The energy in his veins reacted, violently, defiantly, fighting back with a force that felt like his very soul, clawing its way to the surface. The mental grip shattered. Tyler gasped, air flooding his lungs as the invisible weight lifted. The masked figure stiffened, its glowing eyeline flickering. "Unstable response detected." Tyler didn't wait. He launched himself to his feet, moved faster than he thought possible, and grabbed Mara, pulling her up even as she winced in pain. "I can move," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "Good," Tyler said, surprised at the steadiness of his own tone. "Because we need to run." The masked figure advanced, each step silent yet echoing through Tyler's bones. "You cannot escape your origin." But something inside Tyler had changed. The awakening wasn't just happening. He was starting to control it. Electricity crackled along his arms, invisible but real enough to burn the air. His vision sharpened until he could see every detail of the figure's mask, every vibration in the floor, every micro-shift in the room. He was no longer prey. He didn't fully understand what he was becoming. But for the first time, he wasn't afraid of it. He grabbed Mara's hand. "When I say run, run." Mara stared at him, eyes wide, fear mixed with something else, recognition. "Tyler, what are you doing?" He gritted his teeth as the energy built inside him like a rising tide, each second more volatile than the last. "Something I shouldn't be able to." He stepped forward, placing himself between Mara and the masked figure. Then, with a voice steady in a way that frightened even him, he whispered, "Run." The moment the word left his mouth, the world seemed to tighten, every sound stretching thin as if the air itself were bracing for impact. And Mara didn't hesitate. She sprinted toward the far exit even though her ribs throbbed and her breath came in sharp, uneven bursts, trusting Tyler with a faith that had not existed an hour ago yet felt inexplicably solid. Tyler didn't look back. He faced the masked figure head-on, the invisible current inside him rising in a tidal swell that pushed against his skin with painful insistence, begging to be unleashed. The masked figure paused, its posture tilting ever so slightly as if recalibrating, analyzing him with machine-precise scrutiny. "Unregistered output level," it murmured, voice metallic and too calm. "Your activation is premature. This deviation will be corrected." Tyler felt a tremor run through his limbs. Not of fear, but of something awakening, tightening, sharpening, something that made his fingertips burn and the edges of his vision glow faintly with pale static. "You're not correcting anything," he said through gritted teeth, barely recognizing the sound of his own voice, steady, rooted, powerful. The figure raised a hand, and the air warped instantly, gravitational pressure shifting like a crushing force aimed directly at him. But this time, Tyler didn't collapse. The energy inside him surged in a violent burst, forming a barrier he hadn't consciously created, a ripple of force that cracked the concrete at his feet and sent dust spiraling upward. The masked entity froze. Impossible. Tyler didn't wait for it to recover. He lunged forward, faster than any human should move, his fist crackling with a pulse of raw electric current that collided with the figure's chest in a blinding flash. The impact sent a shockwave tearing across the room, metal crates toppling, lights shattering, the floor splintering beneath the force. The figure staggered, actually staggered, skidding back several feet, its mask flickering violently with fractured blue light. Tyler stared at his own shaking fists, disbelief crashing into him like cold water. But there was no time to process the impossible. The figure straightened, glitching slightly, and Tyler sensed its frustration, an emotion he never expected something like it to possess. "Your resistance is anomalous," it said, voice warping at the edges, "but anomalies can be erased." It moved faster now, faster than the soldiers, faster than before, a blur of precise, lethal motion slicing through the air toward him. Tyler reacted without thinking. Instincts, his, or something buried, something engineered, kicked in. He ducked under the strike, feeling the force slice the air above his head, then pivoted, letting momentum carry him as he drove his shoulder into the figure's midsection. Another burst of energy erupted from him, involuntary and wild, throwing them both across the room in a collision of light and metal. They crashed into a stack of crates, shrapnel raining down like sparks. Tyler rolled, gasping, his heart hammering against ribs that felt too fragile to contain what was happening inside him. He saw the figure rising, fluid and predatory, and he pushed himself up even as pain clawed at his spine. "You were built for obedience," the figure intoned. "Not for this." Tyler spat blood, wiped his mouth, and glared back with something fierce and unyielding. "I wasn't built for anything. I'm done letting you decide what I am." The figure lunged again, but a new sound cut through the chaos, a whirring pitch, growing, charging. Tyler turned just in time to see Mara at the far end of the room, half collapsed against a control panel, her fingers wrapped around some old industrial power conduit she'd ripped from the wall, its coils glowing dangerously. "Tyler," she shouted, her voice cracking, "move!" He didn't question it. He dove to the side. Mara slammed the conduit into the ground, and a surge of redirected electrical current exploded outward, a brutal wave of unstable power that swallowed the masked figure in a storm of white-blue light. The entity convulsed, its form glitching violently, the mask splitting with jagged fractures as sparks showered in all directions. Tyler shielded his eyes as the entire room shook. When the light finally dimmed, the figure stood frozen, its body flickering like a broken projection, then collapsed piece by piece, dissolving into fragments of metallic ash that hissed as they hit the floor. Silence followed, thick, ringing, unreal. Tyler forced himself up despite the burning in his limbs and rushed to Mara, dropping beside her. She was trembling, breath shallow, eyes glassy with pain and adrenaline. "You okay?" he asked, voice raw with panic he couldn't hide. She managed a half smile, weak but steady. "I'll live," she whispered. "Thanks to you." Tyler shook his head, overwhelmed. "No, you saved us both." Her gaze softened then, something warm cutting through the exhaustion and fear. "We saved each other." For a moment, everything stilled. The alarms, the wreckage, the ache in their bodies, the uncertainty ahead. Only their breaths filled the space, uneven but alive. But reality returned quickly, pressing in with sharp edges. Tyler's knees buckled and he braced against the ground as a new wave of energy rippled through him, darker, deeper, more unpredictable now that whatever restraints once held it back had shattered at. Mara grabbed his arm. "Tyler, hey, look at me." He tried to steady his breathing. "I can't control it. It's getting stronger." "Then we'll learn," she said with a fierceness that surprised him. "Together." He almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Her, injured and exhausted. Him, barely understanding the thing inside him, both hunted by forces beyond anything he'd imagined. "They won't stop coming," Tyler whispered. Mara met his gaze, unflinching. "Then neither will we." He stared at her, this woman who risked her life for him, who believed in him when he barely believed in himself. And for the first time since the nightmare began, he felt something steady forming beneath the chaos. Not certainty, not power, just clarity. They stood together, leaning against each other in the flickering shadows of the ruined room. Tyler glanced at the fallen fragments of the masked figure, realizing the truth he'd been running from. This was only the beginning. Mara followed his gaze, her expression grim. "We need to leave before reinforcements arrive." "Where?" Tyler asked. Mara tightened her grip on his arm, grounding him in a way nothing else could. "Somewhere they won't expect," she said quietly. "And somewhere you can learn who you really are." He swallowed, fear and determination twisting inside him like two threads forming the same knot. "And if I don't want to be who they made me?" Mara shook her head gently. "Then you won't be." Simple words, dangerous promise, but they were enough. Tyler nodded, and together they stepped into the dark corridor beyond the ruined room, leaving behind the ashes of the thing that tried to claim him, and walking straight into a future neither of them understood. But for the first time, the unknown didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a choice.